I just scribble, and then I kind of start seeing things in those scribbles and start kind of formulating. And I'm like, oh, like this kind of looks like this thing's ripping its head off to the left. And then that's what I start drawing. And then it turns in from something that might seem random into like, I start forming a story in my head. I start getting a direction that I want to go.
What's up, everybody? Ryan from JoBlo.com here, coming to you from the Harman Projects gallery in Los Angeles, California. There is an artist that we at JoBlo are big fans of by the name of Alex Pardee. You may already be familiar with him, and if you're not, I encourage you to get familiar with him. He does incredible horror artwork. I think the JoBlo audience would be big fans. So I'm here to check out his gallery, Return of the Doppelgangers, and have a conversation with the man himself about his artwork and inspirations. Check it out.
So we're here at Harman Projects in Los Angeles, and this brand new collection of work of mine is called Return of the Doppelgangers. The Doppelgangers is a series of paintings that I started, I would probably say like over a decade ago, as kind of like a therapeutical approach to, I guess, just therapeutical, right? You know, like just like therapy. I'm a huge horror fan, so there was a point where I just started splashing down some colors and kind of like, this might be a long-winded way to tell the story, but like I noticed how iconic some like, you know, horror characters were. Like Freddy Krueger, there's like the green and red sweater, the brown house, and so like at the time I was experimenting with watercolor paintings, and I wanted to figure out what's like the minimal approach that I can do to make these like paintings that would still be recognizable as these horror icons. And so I was making these really crude watercolor paintings that were making me happy because they looked so ridiculous. They were like literally just these, like, they looked like little mutated things, but there was a Freddy hat or a Jason mask, and it was a really fun exercise. And that was apart from my like over hyper detailed artwork that I would spend hours and hours on. And so that was why, you know, that's where the therapy kind of came in. It was like this exercise in experimenting and using inspiration that I grew up with. So that's how it started, and then it kind of snowballed into its own thing. The more I did it, the more obscure the characters became, the more I was having fun with watercolors, the more I was learning how to paint with them, and the more like, you know, homework I was giving myself by being like, oh, I actually never saw this. This is weird. Like there's a sequel to When a Stranger Calls. Let's watch it. So, you know, like that kind of stuff was what I just did over the years. And so it gave me this hobby aside from my professional hobby, which is art. So it was just this kind of ongoing. So, you know, long story short, this collection is the latest series of those Doppelgangers paintings. So where they started very mainstream and iconic, Freddy Krueger, Jason, Leatherface, Pinhead, now we get into more obscure stuff, right? So we're here with a little bit of some deep cuts here.
So you touched a little bit about kind of your creative inspirations growing up, the Freddy Kruegers of it all. What was some of the art that really stuck with you when you were a kid? Was there something in particular that you remember that maybe influenced your art and your style as you grew into becoming an artist?
Yes, absolutely. I think that I can pinpoint a specific time of my life, which was about in between second and third grade, probably more third grade. During that time, which was probably about 1984, 1985, I simultaneously in the same year saw Garbage Pail Kids, and I saw Santa Cruz skateboard graphics, and my dad got me a couple reprints of Tales from the Crypt EC comics. And those three things were basically the birth of like everything that I loved after that, right? It was like loved horror, loved this hyper illustrated weird stuff, colorful, playful art, parody art, you know, like all of that was just like, those three things are still pretty consistent in everything that I do.
Now we see the end results on our end of things, but can you kind of take us through what your preferred medium is and your approach every time you go to create a new piece?
Sure. A lot of the times when I start painting, I don't have an actual idea. With the exception being, I guess this series is specific properties, right? But a lot of my art is my own characters, my own kind of creations, my own IPs, my own narratives. And when I'm doing those paintings, I'm very interested in shapes that I haven't seen. So a lot of the times I just start scribbling, whether it's scribbling with paint or scribbling with a pencil or scribbling digitally. I just scribble, and then I kind of start seeing things in those scribbles and start kind of formulating. I'm like, oh, like this kind of looks like this thing's ripping its head off to the left. And then that's what I start drawing. And then it turns in from something that might seem random into like, I start forming a story in my head. I start getting a direction that I want to go. And then sometimes that's just the jumping point, and then I shove that aside and do something that springboards from that to like be the finished piece. Which, some of these bigger ones in here are just that. They're started as scribbles, and then I just got messier and messier and then cleaned up the crime scene, and now you have a painting.
Is there something that you have not done yet as an artist that you would be interested in exploring?
I want to make video games. Maybe making is the wrong word. I want to help. I think like there's like 7,000 people that make most video games, except for like some indie ones, where the indie video game people are like my favorite people in the world, because I had no idea how they make everything by themselves. But anyways, I would love to explore some like video game world stuff. I would love to explore more animation, and I love doing film stuff. I've done some film concept stuff recently, and in the past I've been constantly trying to kind of pitch my own stuff. So I like, the goal with me is like, I have my own world, which is for the most part 2-dimensional. And I am striving to constantly see that world expand into other, mediums, whether it's film, animation, things that I can't personally do, that are out of my comfort zone, that others can help me bring to life, so that I can live even like more in my own world.
Do you think you'd like to see like an animated film in your style?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that would be really fun. It'll happen. We'll do it. Yeah. Why not? Let's do it.
It would be a natural transition, man. So kind of taking it back a little bit to your earlier years, was there a particular point in your life that you realized, oh, I can do art as my career?
I think there was less of a specific realization that I can do it as a career, and more of a challenge to myself that I have to do it for a career. I was, throughout high school and college, I was going to school, I was working part-time, I was doing, had multiple jobs and still trying to figure out what I was doing. And then I was still doing my art as, a hobby. And then, as a lot of us do, I started trying to like take more, I had a corporate job, and it was the worst thing that had happened to me at that time. And I was an operations manager in charge of like 12 data entry employees. And I was just like, it was this monotonous, insane thing. And I was just like, I gotta try, I can't do this. So I basically just like abandoned ship and was like, I don't need that much to live. And this was in 1999. And I was just like, if I don't try now, I'm not gonna let myself fail. Like I just will lower my sense of, living, right? Just like, I don't need to, give me a few $100 every few months and I'm good. And so that's what I did. I started with my own publishing company in the late 90s, and I was like selling my own zines and comics, like in front of concerts and at tattoo shops and that. And then I just slowly kind of moved up from there and started selling t-shirts and started doing like band artwork and that. And then it just kind of like, I just kind of kept finding things that I could do.
And now sort of fast forwarding a little bit, we talked about your influences when you were younger. Are there any current artists that give you inspiration or have stuck with you in a way that maybe inspires you in your art?
I am, because of my obsession with building my world out, I'm obsessed with like world builders, I guess. I think as far as like currently, like Meat Canyon, who's an amazing animator, designer, writer, voice actor, like that I'm like I love Meat Canyon a lot. And like, I think that like that is, every time I see something that he puts out, I'm just like, damn, like that's so good. Like, I wish I did that. And I think that most of the stuff that I like is stuff that I look at and I go, I wish I did that. And not that like I'm not mad about it. I'm just like, that gives me the energy to be like, okay, now I have to like try to like friendly outdo that, right? Or something, which will never happen, but I'm going to try. I'm going to keep trying. So yeah.
And so to kind of wrap things up, we are obviously the JoBlo Movie Network, so I want to transition to a couple questions about film, and particularly, for starters, what is it about horror that keeps drawing you back?
I hope this doesn't come across as it's too pretentious or anything, but I have struggled with anxiety and depression and stuff since I was 14. And for some reason, horror is very comforting to me. And, and surface level, most likely because I'm watching people in worse off situations than I'm in. And it kind of watching that brings me back to realizing like, okay, calm down. Things aren't that bad. You're not getting stabbed in the neck at the moment. So like, it just, it's all about kind of like allowing me to realize how I feel in the moment versus simultaneously escaping into what these other people have created to help me forget that. And that's what brings me back. I love horror more than anything.
I think there's something so pure about being a horror fan, and it's reflected in your art, it's reflected in your personality. Like, I absolutely understand where you're coming from. So there's a lot of pieces in this gallery that are from very, very recent horror movies. So I kind of wanted to ask on a personal level, what your favorite moment in horror was in the last year.
My favorite moment in horror in the last year is easily being one of the only people at the opening day of The Substance in a theater at 11 a.m. in the morning and watching the final form of Monster Alyssa Sue emerge. And because at that point I was like, this movie can't get any crazier. It's great already, so I'm satisfied. And then it kept going and it kept going, and my jaw was dropped, and that was it. That's my moment.
And I loved seeing that you actually have a piece from that on the wall here. Like, my love of The Substance is running so deep. I've been singing its praises. And you told me there was a bit of a story behind that, if you could kind of expand on that for us.
Sure, yeah. So I really, really wanted to include The Substance in this art show. And when I was creating the collection for it, like I said, I went to go see it on opening day. First showing, was completely inspired. I was like, Sue needs to be in the collection, right? So I have to go home. So I went home, and a lot of these characters, some of them I don't need reference for, but a lot of them, the fun is looking at the reference and kind of making it my own, right? And kind of like drawing from that reference in. And so because The Substance had just come out, and that was such a left field spoiler, there was nothing online about it. And so I was like, I didn't have a reference, and I was like, what am I going to do? I need to get this thing done. So I immediately went back to the theater that same day, took mental notes, was like, oh my God, okay, tooth holding boob, left this, head on back this. I'm like, okay, got it. I went home, I scribbled it, I painted it, and I was so nervous to see what it ultimately looked like. And then when the photos started trickling out, I was like, okay, cool, I did pretty good. I was pretty good, so pretty proud of that one.
And lastly, what's next for you, and where can people go to connect with you and your work?
So a lot of these from this collection, as well as a lot of the ones you see on the wallpaper back here and some more you don't see, are all collected into a new edition of this book called Doppelgangers that I have. That will be released about early February, I would say. And we're currently possibly putting together a book tour for that, at least on the West Coast, but it'll be released online. So I'll be focusing a little bit on that. I always have things juggling. I have a couple movie projects that I'm kind of like, up and down on. I always am doing my own art. I have my own apparel company that's just under my name, House Pardee. So you can find stuff on, my Instagram is just my name. My website is just my name, or housepardee.com. Either one works. Everything. Like I'm pretty good about. Okay, wait, let me correct that. I'm not good at social media, but I'm pretty good about posting and constantly reminding people and constantly bugging people like, hey, come to my show, buy my book, get this. Like, I try my hardest to like work on these, and I love these, and I like that people like them as well. So I do my best.
We're huge fans of you over at JoBlo, huge fans of your work. Congratulations on this, and we can't wait to see what's next for you.